The Sorcerers. A novella by Amber Wallace. Chapter 2. Alec felt like 1,000 horses were trampling his skull. Slowly, he pried his eyes open, his vision swimming as he took in his surroundings. The dimly lit rooms smelled of damp wood and herbs. Above him, the ceiling sagged with rot. To his left, the floorboards splintered and darkened with mold. A workbench stood beside him, cluttered with strange plants, vials, and books. In the far corner, a small bed rested beneath hanging bundles of dried herbs, the air thick with their scent. He groaned as he pushed himself up, only to be met with a sharp pain searing through his back. He gasped, wincing. "I would take it easy if I were you," a soft voice called from across the room. Alec turned his head toward the sound, peering over the workbench. A young woman stood near the hearth, her back to him, flipping through a book as if she had not a care in the world. What happened?" he rasped, his throat parched and aching. "Where am I?" Silva turned then, her gaze still on the pages as she strode toward him. "You were attacked." She set the book aside, pinning him down with sharp green eyes. Alec studied her. She was striking, auburn hair cascading past her shoulders, light skin that seemed to catch the fire's glow. The green velvet of her dress matched her piercing gaze, making them all the more intense. "Attacked?" His head pounded as he struggled to recall anything. Silva crossed the room to the fireplace, where a pot of water boiled over the flames. She reached for a ladle hanging on the wall, dipped it into the pot, and poured the steaming liquid into a wooden bowl. Alec braced himself against the workbench, forcing his legs beneath him. The effort was almost too much. His vision swayed, and with it, flashes of the attack burst through his mind, screams, shadows with blackened eyes, his men being torn apart. His breath hitched as the memory of one of the creatures lunging at him resurfaced. A sudden thud on the workbench jolted him back to reality. Alec's eyes snapped open to find a black cat staring at him, its green eyes unnervingly bright. He startled, stepping back. "Barlo is harmless," Silva said, still by the fire, cradling the wooden bowl in her hands. She watched him, an amused glint in her gaze. Alec swallowed. There was something about this woman, an aura that prickled at his senses. He glanced at the cat, which hadn't moved, its gaze still fixed on him. "You're a witch," he muttered. Silva frowned. "No," she said simply, stepping closer. The firelight caught the necklace resting against her collarbone, a sun-shaped charm that almost seemed to flicker with life. "I am not a witch." She held the wooden bowl out to him. Alec eyed the steaming liquid, herbs swirling in the water. "Drink. It will help you." He hesitated. "If I wanted you dead, I would have left you where I found you. Now drink." That was reason enough. He took the bowl and sipped. The hot liquid soothed his dry throat, though the bitter taste made him cough. Alec cleared his throat, pounding his chest as Silva smirked, retrieving the bowl once he was done. "If you're not a witch," he said, catching his breath, "then what are you?" She leaned against the workbench, arms crossing. "I prefer the term a woman of the arts." He raised a brow, his expression clear. "What's the difference?" Silva huffed but continued. "Unlike a so-called witch, as you mortals call it, I value the living world around me. I do not neglect nature, I work with it, not against it. A witch is selfish, willing to spill blood for power. I am not." Alec opened his mouth, then closed it. The black cat, Barlo, she'd called it, stood, sauntering over to her. Silva stroked his back absent-mindedly. The cat tilted its head up at her, and for a moment, Alec could swear they were communicating without a single word. The thought unsettled him. "What's your name?" she asked suddenly. Alec blinked. Why did she want to know? Did she truly not recognize him? If she lived deep in these woods, perhaps not. "I am Alec," he said, withholding his full title, for now. Silva studied him, her expression unreadable. "And you're part of the royal kingdom, are you not? You were surrounded by the king's men when I found you." Alec stiffened. "Yes," he admitted, voice cautious. "I am Prince Alec, son of King Frederick." She didn't react. No wide eyes, no bowing, no fear. Just quiet observation. You're, not going to. I have no interest in cursing you, if that's what you're implying. She cut him off, unimpressed. Then why did you save me? Silva didn't answer immediately. Instead, she busied herself with the clutter on her workbench, stacking books, sealing jars. Tell me what happened to you and your men, she said at last. Alec frowned. I asked you first? She held up her hand. I cannot tell you my reason unless you tell me what happened. Alec hesitated but relented. He had no choice. We were investigating a string of robberies on the trade route. My father sent me and a small unit to put an end to it. But when we arrived, they were waiting. His jaw tightened. They weren't men. Shadows, creatures with blackened eyes. They slaughtered my men. I managed to kill one before. He shook his head. Everything went dark. Silva nodded, unsurprised. Wraiths. Alec frowned. What? They're not mere demons, she explained. Wraiths are bound to a sorcerer, created from pieces of their very soul. For every wraith slain, the sorcerer loses a fragment of themselves until nothing remains. Alec stared at her. That made no sense. Then why save me? He asked again. Silva hesitated. Her gaze flickered to Barlo, who shook his head. She frowned at him before turning back to Alec. Because I am hunting the sorcerer who created them. Her voice was steady. And for whatever reason, that sorcerer has taken an interest in you. Alec's stomach clenched. Why? Who is the sorcerer? Silva remained silent. I do not know why, she admitted. As for the rest, that information is mine to withhold. Alec's jaw tightened. He had no intention of letting this go. Whatever game she was playing, it involved him just as much as her. One way or another, he would get his answer.